Hey, warriors, welcome back to another episode of the Invisible Diaries. We're your hosts. I'm Misty,
And I'm Amber.
and today we are discussing how to be there for someone with chronic illness on episode 14.
As always, a quick disclaimer. Any information discussed on this podcast is strictly our opinion and for informational purposes only. It is not meant as medical advice and should not be taken that way. Always consult with your doctor or medical team.
We know battling a chronic illness can be hard, and if you find yourself or someone you love in a crisis and need to sorry, and need to talk, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK, which is free and it provides confidential support in the US 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, that number is 1-800-273-TALK. Now let's get started. Oh, well, let's just start out by saying it's early, and because it's like we got up at like early and we're trying to, we want to get caught up and get these episodes out. So forgive us for our fumbles because I don't know why I couldn't read that.
I couldn't even say my name today, so we're off to a great start.
Yes. So, some other podcasts, they'll be like strictly out every single Monday or Wednesday, and that's not us because
we're working on it. We're trying. We're not super produced. We don't have somebody that's helping us write scripts and all that good stuff. And we're both full-time, workers and students and moms and wives. So
yes.
And we battle our own illnesses on top of that. So
yeah, that too.
Sometimes
we're just like, I'm not getting out of bed.
It's not happening today.
Yes. Yeah. So this topic is near and dear to our hearts because, obviously we have chronic illnesses and most of you listening do as well. So we wanted this to kind of not necessarily be for us, but be for everybody else.
Absolutely.
To maybe learn from, just some ways that might make the spoonie or chronic illness warrior in their life just a little bit easier. It's more or less just from what I've noticed, a lot of friends don't know how to respond or act to, knowing that I'm always sick. Like, so I'll have like some Facebook, conversations going with multiple friends, and I'll be like, oh, I'm having like this surgery, coming up in 3 weeks, and it'll be like crickets. And then suddenly, someone will say something like, oh, I bumped my elbow, and everyone's like, oh my God, are you okay? But it's like, I think because it's so often, and I think because they're usually big things that maybe they just don't really know how to respond. And at first it was kind of hurtful, but now I think it's just because I try to look at it as maybe they just don't, like I said, they don't know how to respond.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So how about you?
No, I definitely, I agree with that 100%. I think social media is a little difficult because a lot of times we can't read the other person, it's just black and white text, so it's kind of left for our own interpretation. But we both are very open, you more so than, not just because you've had a much more dynamic journey as far as the medical side of things. And I think, and you've been really public about that, and that's been amazing because like for someone like myself who kind of is a little more private with regards to my own like things, like my own situation, not for any other reason other than I'm just weird that way. It helps bring me out of my comfort zone because I'm like, the whole point of us starting this is to help other people.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things when I see your posts, I appreciate, and I agree, it's some of the little stuff people like, will respond to, and then other stuff, it's like the big major stuff that you really need support on. You're just like, did anyone see it?
Oh yeah. I even had a friend once that was like, you're healthier than I am, because she was like going through some stuff. She was like, you don't get it. And I was like, girl, are you kidding me?
You're like, how much time you got?
I haven't always been open about my illness. And in fact, over, years ago, like I would say in the last 2 years is when it started. But before that, I was a hairstylist, a photographer, and having like clients, you can't be talking about illnesses all the time because people
Right.
literally, and it's happened, they just say, "Oh, she's got all this stuff going on. She's
Right.
sick,
They
or
make the
she's
decision
she's
for
I think
you.
she's in the hospital right now." I even had a client the other day messaging one of my fellow friend stylists because she saw that my post getting my weekly IV, which is
Mhm.
just an appointment I go in and get my weekly IV infusion.
Mhm.
Saw it, didn't read anything, and just went, her head just registered that as Missy's in the hospital. So
Right.
she booked an appointment with somebody else.
Oh
And like
no.
luckily I kind of knew about it, and I was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" "I'm doing great."
Yeah, yeah.
Just so
Right.
you know. And
Yeah.
eventually she ended up booking. She was like, "Oh, I was going to try to book with you," and it resolved, but that was only cuz I was lucky enough to like catch that. But
Right.
I mean, they dropped like flies when they would see I was not well.
And it's the never ending debate, I think, with people that are in the social media world slash, I don't want to say like they use it for a platform versus personal, is
Mhm.
because, you know, you want to share, you don't want to have two different pages necessarily going all the time.
Oh
Because some
yeah.
people are like, you don't, maybe don't share it with all your friends and family. And it's like, yeah, but if you got cancer, those are the people that you would announce it. You would announce it to random
Right.
strangers first, and so it's like you need support I think from those people first. And the ones that, don't, they can just keep scrolling. But
Right.
I feel like it's hard because it is your personal page and you want to be able to share. I feel like it's kind of
Mhm.
like when you like post something on a wall, literal wall, whoever walks by and sees it, great. It's not intrusive, it's not
Yeah.
imposing on anyone.
And I tried to start this process mostly because I really had to work less. I had to kind of step down and I had to take less clients because my
Right.
health got really severe. And so at that point, I was like, well, it's okay if they stop seeing me because they see my posts and they
Right.
decided to choose to make that decision not to, because I really needed to kind of cut back anyway. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, screw it. I ripped the band aid off. And the crazy part is that, like, I didn't just lose clients, like, I lost friends. Like, now
Absolutely. Yeah.
that looking through, like, friends lists and people that I'm like, oh, I haven't heard from this person in a while or seen their posts, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
look and I'm like, oh, they
I got
unfriended me.
unfriended. Cool.
So it's like, I guess I
Yeah.
was more fun when I used to drink and, like, go out and, you know, I guess I don't know how to explain it, but now that I'm
Which is,
trying to be
yeah.
an advocate and activist and,
Well, and I think that's the really hard part between, which is why we're doing what we're doing, is because if someone announces, and this is in no way meant as disrespect to someone that has cancer, but when someone announces, "Hey, I have cancer," we kind of know what to do with that now. Like we know, like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, like that's going to mean surgery or radiation or chemo. Like we know, or a combination of those things. When someone says chronic illness, and we've talked about this a lot on this podcast, like I have dysautonomia or I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or I have, fill in the blank. Most people don't even know what it is unless you're
Mhm.
someone either that has experience with, autoimmune, or the rare health professional that knows, because
Yeah,
they just
most
have to
of
know
them don't
so
know
much. Most
either.
of them don't. Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
so I think that part of that cricket syndrome is, they're just not sure what it is. Like they're not sure.
Right.
I mean, because like if before I was sick, and I mean, obviously I'd like to think that my brain works a little different, but you see someone getting an IV and you're like, oh my gosh, are they getting like chemo infusion? Like I wouldn't even think of saline infusion, you know what I mean?
Right.
So like, oh my gosh,
Absolutely.
Misty must be so sick. It must be cancer. So I think that that's just a lack of education that people just don't. And then plus when it's chronic, dude, like you're talking about it forever because
It's
it's
always
chronic.
ongoing. Yeah, it's true. I think part of my hang up is that I've had people like attack me,
Sure.
family members. We've discussed this in the past.
On a
Saying I'm
very
like
personal level.
yeah,
Like
saying
not
I'm
like,
like an attention seeker, and it's like,
right.
I'm like, this is like talking about my health has pushed people away. I've
Mm-hmm.
lost friends because
Right.
people don't relate to me.
Mm-hmm.
Being like fake, putting on a smile, pretending I'm okay. I had friends, but
Right.
that's not real. I don't want those friends anyway. I want the
Yeah, I mean,
friends
it's
who,
disingenuine.
right. And so, like you really do lose a lot of people. You don't get the
Well, and I
attention that
think
people think.
the other side that you and I both have experienced is that because and those of you guys listening who have these kind of illnesses, you understand you can have a day where you're feeling amazing and you go to a theme park or you go out to lunch with someone and you're posting because you don't want to just share just the times that you're not feeling well. And then when you have either the next day or the next couple of days that you're like down and out, knocked out, ill, they're like, how
Isn't that
can they
called
just be,
imposter syndrome?
yeah, like how can they be so sick after just doing something so fun? Like they must be lying.
Exactly. So imagine you have two people who are not on the same page, let alone the same book. One struggles with chronic illness and the other is averagely healthy and maybe even deals with a common ailment here and there. But how can they relate when it comes to health? It may not come easy to some when they have never had their health jeopardized. It is important to build a bridge to have a connection with your friend and family. So,
Absolutely.
I've noticed too, like it doesn't necessarily have to be a friend or family. I have a friend with a chronic illness who's dealing with like a terrible coworker who is just like so hateful, basically bullies her about not being there and for her health issues and stuff.
Mm,
So, I think it's just also something that's also why we want to kind of share this is because we want even people who don't necessarily have someone close to them, but just kind of like an ethical, like be a good person thing.
yeah. The golden
we're not
rule.
asking, yeah, we're not asking you to bring us flowers. We're just like,
Just
just don't be a
treat us like you want to
jerk.
be treated. Yeah, exactly.
So perhaps your friend or loved one has an invisible illness. This means that they look healthy on the outside, but on the inside they struggle with an illness like diabetes, lupus, PTSD, POTS, thyroid diseases, cardiac and neurological disorders, to name a few. At the end of the day, we all have our own battles. It can be tough to look at someone who looks fully capable of living life, but the way you do, but we are all different. Understand that just because you may be healthy and can juggle so many tasks does not mean it comes easy for others. It's important to recognize that with all things, there's a spectrum. With chronic illnesses, the spectrum can vary day to day. One morning, we may have so much energy that we can clean the house and go out and get lunch, and the next morning, we may be bedridden. So, kind of like what you're talking about, that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's something that a lot of people I feel like can't understand when they're like, "Oh, well, looks like she does all these fun things, yet she's
Right.
so sick." It's like
Right.
they expect us to be, I think, just bedridden 24/7 if we're truly that sick. But I
Right.
mean, our
That's not
mental
how these
health would just
diseases work.
go out the window. And then I feel
Right.
like if that's the case, then you would just continue to deteriorate because if you just don't have that, if you can't just have some type of outlet, and
Right.
and
They
we
meant.
we take advantage of those good days. We
Mhm.
have to. It's our only opportunity to feel normal.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that, because it's chronic and because people only know what they know when they think of the word sick, where it's like you get sick and you're down and out for a few days and then you're better, or you're sick for a couple months and then you're better. And so
Right.
that's not, and for some people, these diseases work that way where they have, longer periods of a flare and then they have longer periods of remission. But most of our listeners, at least, and most of what I'm seeing, in our support groups online and stuff, is that everyone, not everyone, a lot of people are suffering from polyautoimmunity. So they've got
Mhm.
several different of these
Yeah, it's like a
things
domino
going on at
effect.
once. Yeah. So if maybe one, little gremlin, disease gremlin is under control, you've got another one firing up and misbehaving. And so, I think that that's, if you know someone that has been diagnosed, or someone that has, chronic illness, starting out the conversation of trying to seek understanding that it does not operate like a cold, it does not operate like cancer, and that you're very, very, very sick, and then you're in remission,
This is sorry,
sorry, go
this is
ahead.
what I
Yeah.
call the wheel of misfortune. So every morning I feel like with us chronic illness warriors, spoonies, whatever, we wake up and we spin the wheel. And
Yeah.
it just depends on what that lands on. That might land on you're gonna have a migraine today. That might land on
Right.
you're not getting out of bed today. You might get
or all of
lucky
the
and
above.
score, hey, you're going to have a good day today. Take advantage. So we
Right.
never really know. That's the thing. It's like we might feel good one minute, make plans, and then next minute we're like, sorry,
But I think that, since we're talking to not people that obviously, we're not talking to our fellow spoonies, this conversation is for people that are really trying to kind of understand, that starts with trying to understand, it starts with asking that person so without being intrusive, how do you feel? Like,
yeah.
how does that change for you every day?
So personally, putting on makeup every day is a way of putting on war paint. I hide the dark circles from waking up every hour. I conceal the redness in my face. Sometimes I add blush to my pale skin. When I look well, I don't get asked if I'm sick or told that I look tired. I feel normal and ready to take on the day. Just because your friend or loved one looks put together and seems young and healthy doesn't mean she wasn't up at 4 a.m. with severe back spasms, and again at 5 a.m. feeling dehydrated, and again at 6 a.m. with more pain and numb arm until finally it's time to get up for the day. She probably got dizzy a few times while her blood pressure dropped, causing nausea and tachycardia. Be grateful she answered the phone or showed up for lunch, and she will be grateful for you.
Absolutely. That's very well said.
Yes. So.
And I think many of us can relate because, we posted about that the other day where it's like, oh, you look so much better. You must be feeling better. And it's like, you would never walk up. That's not true. You would never walk up to someone that you're not super close with and be like, wow, you look terrible today.
Oh, people do that. I swear to you. I swear. Like when I don't,
what is happening?
On days that because usually I'll wake up, I have like my little shower chair. I'll sit on my shower chair. I put my makeup on. I'll take a break. I'll be like half makeup and I'll go and like start a smoothie and whatever. I take my time getting ready. And then on days where I just I can't, I just
you're like, not can't. Today.
And then people will be like, you okay? So even if you see me not wearing makeup, I'll throw some red lipstick on just because then I feel like, okay, look, I'm me. I'm good. Because if I don't,
maybe people won't ask me like, why do you look so terrible today?
Like, this is how I look in real life. I guess in real life I look sick. So
I wish it could be like a vacancy, no vacancy sign.
I know.
Or you could be like, sick today, not sick today.
Or like a sign on top of our head that says like, I can't people today.
Yeah.
That I do have a few things I was gonna say towards the end too, but about like just things not to say. So real quick, like one of those is like, why don't you smile? Like I used to get a lot, even at just like at a gas station, like going in to pay, like pump for gas, like can't be that bad. Why don't you smile? Or can't you smile, whatever. It's like, oh, I am here. I'm out of bed. Like you don't know me. Like we're complete strangers.
You do not know my struggle just to be here.
I've snapped at people before. Like there's been days where it's like I just had the worst news dropped on me, and it's like you don't know me. So it's like the rest. I think we have a meme that we put out, resting bitch face, but instead it's resting spoony face.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just don't feel like smiling, and maybe there's been times where like maybe I'm smiling on the inside. I'm just tired. Like leave me alone.
Yeah. No, so, I think that's completely 100% accurate.
Oh my gosh. Amen.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that, even people that are healthy. It's because that argument can be said for the male female sexes that or it's like hey girl, you're beautiful, you should be smiling, and it's like, what is that like, what? Am I happy? Yes. Am I feeling good?
Exactly.
Then I smile.
Well, another thing too that a lot of people forget about is like the mental health aspect of having a chronic illness. It can be mentally exhausting too, because just as an example, I saw my electrophysiologist yesterday, and so basically I had this new diagnosis, which is like huge, and it explains a lot of my really scary issues that send me to the ER. And my electrophysiologist, like most doctors don't understand this, the myocardial bridge. And he basically was just like, yeah, that's common. And I'm like, well, why don't you read the Stanford studies? Because there's like this information out there that isn't old school, you know, like new information, and just shutting it down. And then I was like, well, let me remind you that I had a positive stress test that showed ischemia, which,
Right.
you know, kind of goes with this
Lack of
diagnosis.
oxygen, dude.
He's like, well,
Lack of blood flow.
women have positive or false positives on stress tests. I go, so why do you test women? Why test
Yeah,
women? Just
in their
stop testing
30s.
women if you're not going to listen.
And
Why do you
and
test me?
yeah, and my age, like that's common in my age, because I don't know
Oh, the
about you, but when I
estrogen.
walk into my electrophysiologist's office, every single time he's like, "Why are you here? You're too young to be here." I don't
So
know, dude,
yes,
because I got nothing better to do than hang out with you today.
amen. So yeah, the mental health aspect is definitely huge because we're also, you know, some of us have PTSD from, you know, traumatic health events.
Mhm.
We feel almost like abandoned and neglected from medical providers sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it's a constant battle just that alone. Like, forget being depressed about feeling pain all the time and feeling like crap. Um, so I made a couple like bullet points, and so, you know, basically the one I'm going under right now is understanding. The fact that anyone's listened to this so far is a huge deal for your fellow spoonie or chronic illness warrior in your life. Just trying to understand what it's like for your friend or loved one shows a lot of compassion and empathy, and sometimes that's like the biggest way to support us to begin with. Um, for most of us, we're constantly judged, assumed we're lazy, told it's in our head, called hypochondriac, or just straight up dismissed. Certain medical conditions sometimes take up a decade or longer to get diagnosed. Oftentimes, there are several misdiagnoses, which statistics, that's 1 in 20, 12 million per year, sidebar. And even people get left in the gray area where no one really knows what to do. We feel alone and lost. So, I mean, that's one point definitely that's
Oh
most
yeah.
important, is just like to try to be understanding like what we're going through. um
Yeah.
Keeping your ideals to yourself. We appreciate your concerns, absolutely. I can vouch for myself that I have done plenty of research, like a lifetime worth, and I'm fully aware of my body and what's normal for me. I have a strict diet with optimal nutrition supplements. I don't drink. I'm a non-smoker. I'm always trying to stay positive as well as seeing a therapist. My health is my full-time job. You can't even pronounce the illnesses I have, so please don't try to cure me. Of course, we appreciate advice, but it's simple and keep it at that. Don't try to push your ideas on someone and tell them if they exercise more, they'll feel better, or if they can medicate or meditate, they might have a cure. All we want is a shoulder to cry on, a listening ear, positive vibes, and understanding. Right?
True, girl. You speak in my love language. I
Because,
know
you know,
that.
because we just posted a meme the other day that, like, please send all your sales pitches and unsolicited advice, because that's part of it, you know, like even friends who aren't trying to do a sales pitch, it's just in general, people
Yeah.
are like, oh, you know, have you tried cutting this out of your diet? It's like, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's
it's
like,
not to
of
say
course.
it, and it's not to say, you know, I think people get naturally excited, especially if it's something has helped you. Like you want to share that
Yeah,
with everybody, because especially if it's
that's
something,
true.
if you were really sick for a long time and something worked for you, because I see it even in our community where they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh my gosh, you should do this." And I think the minute you tell someone you should, just stop, because it's just no matter whether you're talking about health or not, I think we don't know what's best for someone else, so to say you should implies that we do. So if you can take a step back and be like, I just want to share what worked for me, um, whatever you do with it. But I'm just so
Yeah,
excited because it worked for me. And,
it's a healthy balance. I mean, of
it's,
course,
yeah,
like when someone's going to share like knowledge they have, that's sweet and that's
yeah,
great. But some people will just sit there and try to guess like they know. Like I had a
right.
lady the other day who was like, oh, you know, have you tried this and you know, your thyroid? I'm like, I've gotten my thyroid checked. It's great. Thank you, doc. You know, and then they'll just kind of start going down their list. Well, like, oh, well, have you tried? And it's like, yes, girl, I
Yeah,
have tried
yeah,
all of that. Thank you. I know what's going on though. Like I've got, you know, a
yeah.
lot of tests done. I'm seeing doctors. Like
Which,
we're
which also goes with the imposter syndrome. Now you have the invalidated, I'm not trying hard enough to get better
Mhm.
syndrome, and
Oh,
for our
amen.
younger listeners, guys, like, you know your body. Misty and I say that all the time. Like, if you know you're not feeling right, that's enough validation. You know you're not feeling right. You know when,
Yeah.
no more so than if you fell and you broke your arm and it's no longer in a straight line. You know. You know by
Right.
pain, you know by your arm at a 90-degree angle, like, So,
Yeah. And you
I
might be
think,
alone in this for some time, but just
yeah.
keep fighting, keep trying,
Well,
keep
and I'm
advocating.
seeing that trend in our younger listeners for sure, our younger followers, that they're having a really hard time because it's like, oh, it's kind of the same thing where it's like, oh, you're just, you know,
Growing pains.
growing pains. And then our older listeners as well, because someone brought
Oh,
that up
you're getting
way in the
old.
beginning. Yeah, it's just old age. And it's like,
Aging.
did we lose vitality? Did we lose the whole like will that, like, we're just so
Apparently there
used
was
to
no in
feeling
between.
terrible? Yeah.
You go from growing pains to just old AF.
You just skip all the good stuff. It's fine.
So my next point is, uh, and I'm gonna preach this, like you'll get it. If you are sick, stay away. I
Oh
can't
man.
say that enough.
Amen.
Seriously, some of us have compromised immune systems, and if you have a cold or flu and you bring your germs to anyone, even a healthy person, it's simply just rude. If you bring your germs to someone who is already ill, it's cruel. We don't fight infections. Um, I lost my train of thought. Oh, and other illnesses very, very well. And most of the time, it makes our issues worse. And for some, it could mean a trip to the hospital, which is true. I had pneumonia
Mhm.
in May. I think one episode you could tell because I
Yeah.
had no voice. But it's I can't even tell you how many times in my life I've had someone come near me, knowing, that I have heart issues and just sick and
Right.
coughing and, oh, hey, I have strep throat, by the way. Hope it's okay that I came in today. It's
It's
like,
just
just
strep.
just
It's just
please
strep.
cancel, because if I, and most people, but speaking for myself, if I get a cold, it might not be that big of a deal. It's like we get colds, but my colds don't always stay a cold. If I get a
Mhm.
cold, 100% I will be getting an upper respiratory infection or
Secondary.
bronchitis.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
not just have the sniffles and a little cold. I will
Right.
get bronchitis, and there's a possibility that that could turn into pneumonia, and I have
Right.
heart issues. And also, if I get strep throat or anything like that, my valves are messed up in my heart.
Right.
It
Well, I
takes a
mean,
small little infection to put me on a transplant list.
right. And
So,
and and you to me, this is basic. It's like going back to hand washing 101. Like, these are things that, whether you're a sick person or a healthy person, they're just good people skills. Like, they're just good
yeah.
human being skills. Like, if you go to the bathroom, wash your hands. Like, why do we stop using soap? We just use like hand sanitizer now. I'm like, that does not change washing your hands with soap and
Yeah.
water. Like, that works. There's a reason diseases went down. Just wash your hands.
Well,
But
and
I'm
you
the
can
same way.
get a pack of like masks too. So like I was at my brother's
Oh, cheap.
salon and I popped
Hmm.
in and his client was wearing a mask and I was like,
Hmm.
that's odd. And she
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I was thinking I'm sick, or I don't." She wasn't full blown sick. She had like the
Right.
sniffles, and she
Aw,
was like, "I was just wearing this in case you came in today." And I
that's super
almost died. I was
thoughtful.
like literally an angel. Like I just wish everyone had that mentality to
Right.
like, and she even put an extra mask she brought, put it on my station and said, "This is just in case if anyone else needs it."
But it's like in our
Ugh.
culture, because obviously there are other cultures that exist for our listeners that are overseas. Like, there are other cultures that actually believe in just that kind of personal hygiene and safety. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
because I'm that way. Like, if I have the slightest sniffle, even before I had a chronic illness, like, I had a mask on. My kid had a mask on. I kept him home from school. I stay home from school or work,
Yeah.
because the minute that I'm not feeling well enough, what a lot of people don't realize about illnesses is that by the time that you don't feel good, your body is like raging war, trying to fight
Oh yeah.
whatever pathogen is in your system. So
And
it's
there's a
like by
good
the
chance
time
that we could end up in the ER just because we're already struggling as it is, and it's
right, our
like
immune systems
heart
don't work
issues,
correct. Yeah.
dehydration, it's going to be so much faster.
Right. And so if we just kind of go back to wash your hands and either stay home and stay away from events if you're not feeling well, or wear a mask, we could cut down on a lot of, common
Yeah.
colds might be gone.
Well, and people have that fear of missing out, and they also like, I get it, you got to make that money. Like people want to go to work. I know people would always send their kids to, school, and my kids would get sick because, the parents
Right.
dropped them off sick. I mean, it's like even for people who are healthy, it's like an ongoing battle just in general of people just like not being respectful and sharing their germs. Well, guess what? That cold's going to come all the way 360 right back to you
Yeah.
because you spread it to the whole place. And by the time you heal, it's going to have morphed into something else and you're going to get it again. That's called karma.
And the flip side too, I know for me, especially now that I'm an older student with younger college students, that, when I have to wear my mask in class and everyone looks at you like, you're already trying to fly under the radar and not be an attention, seeker. And so
Right.
I think, to have to explain 50 times when people are like, oh my gosh, why are you wearing a mask? And it's like, because I'm sick or someone's sick. Like, if I hear someone, my mask goes on, but to have to explain that, I think it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, because
Like,
people stare at you. But you know what?
but
Like,
you wouldn't walk
just
up to someone and be like, oh my gosh, you broke your arm, you're in a cast. Well, obviously you broke your arm, you're in a cast. Like,
yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. If you see someone wearing a mask, like good for them for like protecting themselves or others, whatever.
right, either they're
Let it
protecting
go.
themselves or they're protecting you.
Stare at your
Like,
phone or something. So I'm going to try to breeze through these last points real quick so we can wrap it up because we'll just go on about this forever because it's like such an important topic. So, social gatherings, there's a good chance we might not make it to your event or night out. I can assure you that we wish we were there, but more often than not, our health makes us flaky friends. Please don't stop inviting us. We will always try, even if the chances are slim. Also, please don't get upset with us if we don't make it. We'd rather be out having fun with you than stuck in bed. So,
amen
true
again.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, just again, I can't stress enough, like, don't stop inviting us because, like, we want to go and hopefully one day we'll show up.
Well, and the wheel
Um,
might land that day on feeling
yes.
great when you spin it.
Yeah, because I know for me, I'll get these ocular migraines where I get flashing lights. I can't see. I can't
Mm,
drive,
with aura,
and it
yeah.
happens out of nowhere. So if you talk to me and an hour later I'm like, sorry, can't make it. That's
It's
probably
not
why.
you being a jerk, yeah.
Or maybe it's something embarrassing, like you have the craps and we just don't want to share it. Just trust us.
Sure,
We want to
yeah.
be there.
Yeah, without oversharing.
Exactly. So know that we
Great
are
point.
fighting a battle. If we seem a little bit off, let us be a little off. There are countless times when I was hanging out with someone while my vision blurred and I started seeing stars, getting lightheaded, heart palpitations. But I pushed through this because this is my normal life. Something that has always bothered me was when strangers and coworkers and peers say smile. Ah, there it is. We talked about that. It can't be that bad. Well, maybe I'm struggling with an ocular migraine today. Look at me. I'm on top of it.
You are on top of it.
Low blood pressure or I didn't sleep well. So if I have a case of resting bitch face, then let it be. I know it could always be worse, but here I am, smile or not. That's funny. I totally already said all those things.
I love it. No, it's a great way to bring it all together because you're right, I
Mhm.
mean, it just if you have someone in your life, if you're listening because you're trying to understand them better, just know that these diseases change down to the minute by minute, that,
Mhm.
and it's not to say that you have to walk on eggshells if you have a friend or family that has, a chronic illness, but it's just to say maybe be in a more sensitive place, and just don't assume anything just by the way that they look, that
Right.
that they're
Yeah,
they're fine.
we're not asking to be coddled or babied or showered with gifts or whatever people think
No,
that we're asking for. Um, Literally just want to feel normal, accepted, and understood and supported. You know.
right. And I think, trying to explain, because a lot of us are navigating this and learning. There is no handbook that says, hey, you've got this disease, it's going to behave like this. Because
Mhm.
you and I have we both have dysautonomia, but presents completely different. So it's, the book on dysautonomia couldn't work, for both of us. So I think
Absolutely.
if there was one book that would, solve it all for everyone, that would be great. But, that's not how these diseases work, and it's not how human beings work, because even if we all have the same disease, our mental, and that side of things are very different.
Right.
So,
I got like 2 more left. So, my illness does not define me. I am a strong warrior. I love art, music, travel, culture, anything vintage, food, nature, giving back, being creative. I can be sensitive, but I persevere and I can keep my chin up. I have not given up and I won't. I have bad days, but I climb above it and stay positive, even if it's a full time job. I am not my illness. However, it is part of my life, whether big or small, and it may affect me, but it's not who I am.
beautifully said.
And that's true too, because that's, a lot of times that's kind of how it feels like, whether we have to remind ourselves or others, we are more than our illness.
Absolutely.
And then as far as like how you can help, um, I just made a quick little note too, is just as a suggestion, because people ask me, they'll reach out to me all the time, like, I have a friend in the hospital, what do I do? So one of my suggestions is don't ask an open-ended question in regards to helping out. So don't say like, oh, let me know what I can do. Unless your friend is really just like gonna speak out, but most of the time, you have to keep in mind that people with a chronic illness, like we have the tendency to feel like we're a burden, whether it's past relationships or just the guilt of having to constantly ask for help, whatever. Like that's something we struggle with. So when someone says like, let me know how we can help, we're gonna say thank you.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be like, actually, yeah, if you could help me clean my kitchen so that I
Right.
can, because I can't get up or whatever. I
Right.
don't know. I'm just
Right.
coming up with an excuse. But we're not going to do that. So instead of asking an open-ended question, that's too broad of an offer. Like I said, it's very kind, but likely the person you offered help will feel too embarrassed to think of a specific thing. Instead, offer specific help such as house cleaning, dropping off dinner on an
Picking up
assigned
the
night.
kids from school.
Yes. Not only is this assistance incredibly helpful, but you also surpass the uneasy icebreaker. No one knows what scope of help you're willing to give, nor do they want to feel like they might be asking for too much. So if you truly want assistance redeemed, then don't give them the option to think and ask. Just tell them when and how. And then I think that's about it. The other thing was like, let them vent, we're not lazy. Yeah. It must be nice to be in bed all day is going to get you the asshole award. Trust me, we would rather have a life than be out on the beach or with friends working on a fun project, but instead we are prisoners to our own body. Be mindful that spending the day in bed is not glorious as it sounds for chronic illness. For the chronically ill person, it means that it was a rough day. Like I said, sometimes we feel like we're prisoners to our own body. So definitely not lazy. And then of course you don't look sick. I can go on a tangent with that, but we all know what that means.
We all know that sick does not look like anything these days.
And my last but not least is the gift suggestion. If we are in the hospital recovering for surgery, there may be little gift suggestions. And again, I brought this up because after being asked by a friend what to bring to a hospital visit for a fellow spoonie, I came up with some awesome go-to items: face wipes, lip balm, books, magazines, fuzzy blanket, fuzzy socks, essential oil, snacks, headphones, and I guess it got cut off. But yeah, those are great little suggestions. I mean, they're really inexpensive and just comforting things. They're
you know what else is free is going and sitting down next to them and maybe just being in the room. You can just sit next to them, hold their hand, or just be next to them and just being there, not having to talk, watch your favorite show, like whatever, like just that kind of blanket support without needing to necessarily do something, is so impactful. Exactly. When you're feeling terrible and maybe, your spouse is home taking care of the kids and, everybody's got stuff going on. So when you give the gift of time to me, for me personally, that always speaks volumes when someone can come sit with me or get in bed. Like some of my best friends will come and just, they know if they want to see me, like they just come and they have a PJ party with me in my bed.
Exactly. That definitely means a lot to us. So I think that really wraps it up. We
Yeah.
covered everything we'd like to cover. And we also have an Instagram post we posted the other day asking for suggestions. And we're going to read them, but I think we've gone over on our time. So definitely check out our Instagram. It's at the Invisible Diaries. A lot of times, if you click on one of those images, you'll see a lot of comments. So, I mean, we really got an awesome community, and people are chipping in with advice and, or their input, which is amazing. We also want to thank you for taking the time to listen, and we ask that you can give us a 5-star review so that other Spoonies can find our podcast. You can visit us on the web at theinvisiblediaries.com. And again, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Feel free to message us or request any upcoming podcast topics. We're always here for our community, shedding light on invisible illnesses.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.